could be a much different story when it comes to the racing action itself. So, cars making their way out onto the circuit, and it is championship leaders Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe who will start on pole position. And they really want to use today as a bit of redemption, because yesterday wasn't the smoothest day for them, because they only finished 11th yesterday, which means they didn't score any points. They were outside the top 10. Therefore, their championship lead has been slashed down to 7 points by the eventual race winners, which were Fran Nereda and Andres Saravia and Matteo Martin Motorsport McLaren, who finished second on the road after a last lap pass between themselves and the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes, which was being driven by Loris Spinelli at the time. But it was this car, in fact, actually, that caused the issue, because it was, whilst they were trying to lap this car, which is one of the teammates to the Teo Martin car that was leading the race at the time, that they actually got caught up behind it, and it was where the pass happened right at the final S's. And while the Antonelli Motorsport Mercedes managed to get the win on the road, the results afterwards were changed with a 5-second penalty, forgive me, for, I believe, cutting the track a little bit as a result of that pass. And therefore the win was given to Andres Saravia and from Nereda. So the car making their way around onto the grid. This car on the left there is the Federico Leo and Naji Razak Ombra Racing Lamborghini, just going past, I think, one of the two Get Speed Mercedes. Yep, that's number 11. That's being driven by John Schuffner, and that will be shared with Janine Hill. Whilst the Ombra Lamborghini is going to be started by Federico Leo, and he will hand over to Naji Razak later on. Now here's a car that will start on the front row of the grid. Tom Onslow-Cole sharing with Valentin Pierberg for SPS Automotive in the Mercedes. A great performance in qualifying earlier on this morning to plant their car on the front row of the grid alongside the championship leaders. And they have won races before in International GT Open. They'll be hoping for a good start to head up what is around about a 9-10 strong Mercedes AMG GT3 entry in this grid. There's car number 5, Stanislav Jedlinski, in the second of the two Olymp racing cars. They run a bit of a split garage. They run a Mercedes and an Audi, and that car will start at the back of the field. And as we say, temperatures here are now getting up to the highest that they're going to be all day, around about 27, 28 degrees. And that means that the track temperature is obviously going to be much higher than it was yesterday, because, of course, with mixed conditions, it meant that effectively trying to get set up and tyre choice was an absolute lottery. Everyone started on wet tyres, but the circuit dried out pretty quickly thanks to the ambient temperature and the humidity around and all the cars dispersing water. And when it came to the transition period in the pit stops, a lot of drivers and teams did actually decide to wait until almost towards the end of the pit window in many cases to switch from the wet or intermediate tyres they were on onto dries. But of course it meant that at that point, before those that pitted latest were running around on very worn, very burnt out wet tyres on what was an increasingly drying track. So by the time they got back out onto the dry tyres, it helped some people but hindered others. And so people just applying different points of strategy. Here's the car that won on the road yesterday, but will start this race from 10th on the grid. Loris Spinelli, who is with Antonelli Motorsport on the grid. And they put in a great performance yesterday, making the most of those changeable conditions to put themselves up the order. Good first stint for Loris Spinelli's co-driver. There's plenty of spectators around here today at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Plenty of activity on the grid. Lots of people filling the main pit straight grandstand here on the Grand Prix circuit. And it should be quite an impressive day today, of course. And we come off the back of two fantastic races at Silverstone, where it was a double victory for Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoe. And they'll be looking to try and make up for their misfortunes yesterday. Other strong performances so far this season have been, or this weekend in qualifying so far today, is Alam Coder, who's put the number 16 Teo Martin McLaren into 5th on the grid. He and Marcelo Han will look to try and make some progress there. Also is Franck Pereira in car number 90 in the second of the two Raton Racing by Target Lamborghinis. But here's your pole man, Albert Costa, looking for home glory here as the Spaniard tries to win at the Spanish event here at International GT Open. He starts with Giacomo Altoe taking over the pit stop. Here's a car that could be a dark horse for a good result. There's Valentin Pierberg walking through the shot, and his co-driver who will start this race, Tom Onslow-Cole, former BTCC star over back in the UK, now applying his craft in GT racing, and certainly making the most of it, starting from the front row. Along on the second row of the grid, yesterday's inherent race winners. They inherited the race after the penalty for Loris Spinelli. Andres Saravia will start the number 17 Teo Martin McLaren, and he will start alongside Fran Moreda in that car. He'll pick it up alongside. Alongside him on the second row, the second of the two ML Racing Lamborghinis, the Canadian Michael Grenier starts this car, and he will hand over to Norbert Seidler during the pit stop window. Looking back to row 3 is where we see the second of the Teo Martin McLarens, but not the one you might expect. It is Alan Cordair who will start this car. A fellow Brazilian Marcelo Han will start alongside him on the third row of the grid in that car. And then alongside him on the third row is going to be the number 90 Raton Racing by Target Lamborghini. Franck Pereira starts this car, and he will start alongside Christoph Lentz, who will pick it up in the pit stops. Good effort from them in qualifying, starting 6th. Let's see what they can do when that high up the grid. 7th place is yesterday's Pro-Am winners. After a spin in the opening laps, it's Fredrik Schandorf who starts the car from Denmark. Thomas Tuchler will pick up that car in the pit stops. And he looks raring and ready to go after their Pro-Am victory yesterday. Another strong performance in qualifying from this car. This is number 22. This is the Sports and U Mercedes, driven by Guillaume Salas. He shares that with Marcio Basso. These two normally race together in the GT Cup Open Championship and a GT4 Mercedes AMG, but the switch to the GT3 car for this weekend, and certainly it's paid off so far, starting in 8th place. That is Enrique Chavez at the wheel, the Portuguese driver in the third of the Teo Martin car. So all three of Teo Martin McLarens inside the top 10. Enrique Chavez sharing with the man Martin Kodric from Croatia in 9th on the grid. And rounding out the top 10 is yesterday's on-the-road race winner. Loris Spinelli starts that car number 6. He shares it with Riccardo Agostini, who looks on as Loris will be the one behind the wheel for the first part of this race. A couple of key names out of the top 10. This is one of them. This is Miguel Ramos, who starts in 11th place in the number 10 SPS Automotive car, the second of the two SPS Mercedes. Fabrizio Crestani of Italy will take over that car later on in the race, but Miguel will look to try and make up some places before he hands it over to the Italian. And so let's look at some highlights from what was a crazy race one yesterday. It started under wet conditions with the Fabrizio Crestani Miguel Ramos Mercedes into turn 1 in the lead, but there was contact between Darren Turner and Norbert Seidler. Round went the Emil Frey Lamborghini, and he went down towards the back of the field. There was more pushing and shoving as Seidler tried to make up for lost time, passing Richard Gonda's BMW that started wandering down the backs of the top 10. There was an incident there between Enrique Chavez and the Riccardo Agostini Mercedes. Into the gravel went the McLaren. He just glanced the barriers, but was able to get back out again. A key pass of the lead saw Loris Spinelli and Andres Saravia make it past Miguel Ramos after the pit stops, with the circuit completely dried out. There was collision between what looked to be Enrique Chavez and Michael Grenier, which saw a penalty for that car. But then Loris Spinelli went too deep as he was trying to lap Tom Onslow Cole and went past Andres Saravia in the closing stage of the race to go into the lead. But this was the crucial part, getting held up by Alan Cordair. Loris Spinelli went over the curbs. He was deemed to have cut the course, getting past Andres Saravia. In the final couple of the corners on the road, it looked to have been an ecstatic victory for Anthony Motorsport. On the podium they were the winners, but a 5-second penalty afterwards gave the victory to Andres Saravia and Fran Moreda in the end. This is what he did to the championship with no points scored in race 1 this weekend. Albert Costa and Giacomo Altori now have a 7-point advantage over both of the two McLarens, Fran Moreda and Andres Saravia, and Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodric level on points with 93, then Grenier and Seidler on 85, Ramos and Crestani back in 5th with 73 points. So it's all to play for at the moment, with at least 3 squads really in contention for the title. So the grid looks to be clearing. Race 2 is all set to get underway here at International GT Open at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia in Spain, and here's the grid of how they line up. Champion leader Albert Costa and Tom Onslow Cole alongside on the front row of the grid. Row 2, it's Andres Saravia, race 1 winner yesterday, and the second Emil Frey car of Michael Grenier. Alan Cordair with a personal best 5th, Franck Pereira alongside him in 6th position, Fredrik Schandorf's Lamborghini, Guillaume Salas' Mercedes on row 4, then Enrique Chavez' McLaren, and the Loris Spinelli Mercedes rounds out the top 10. 11th for Miguel Ramos, 12th for Indy Dolce with an all-Mercedes 6th row. Back to row 7 is Matthias Lizowski in an improved result for the Olymp Racing Audi. Raffaele Giammaria in the second Raton Bar Racing Target Lamborghini. But it's Frederica Lea for Ombre Racing. Ollie Wilkerson looking to try and get a better result after they retired yesterday. Bajtska Visser also looking to move up the field in 17th place. Eliseo Martinez, and Denis Ramanenko and Giuseppe Cipriani back on row 10. And the last few cars on the grid, John Schuffner and Janine Hill, Pierre Felioni and Claude-Yves Gosselin. And then at the back of the field is Stanislav Jetlinski in the second Olymp Racing car looking to make improvements. So as we say, cars that are going to be a little bit out of position but looking to try and make their way up through the order, especially outside the top 10. You've got the likes of Miguel Ramos in 11th place in the SPS Automotive Mercedes. You've got also Indy Donche. They were looking pretty strong in the second half of yesterday's race. Could possibly see some moves from Oliver Wilkinson, who shares with Darren Turner in the Optimum Motorsport Aston Martin. They had a bit of a confusing end to their race because, first of all, they were one lap too late coming into the pit window, and then on the exit off, after they eventually did make their pit stop, a broken stub axle saw them out of the race midway through their outlap, and the car did see the car was performing quite strangely on that run at that point in the race after the pits. This is the view from Tom Onslow-Cole. He's hoping he gets a clear view of the track instead of staring at the back of the rear wing of the points leader Albert Costa. And Albert is fired up to get himself a home win after what he described as a race, yes, a day yesterday, to put a more polite point on it, was a pain in the posterior, shall we say. It was a bit of a choice word when he said it at the time, but rather than go into detail with that, he was certainly a bit annoyed at yesterday's lack of pace, but he certainly was on it in qualifying this morning. Other cars that will try and make it up to the field, Bajcevič's BMW may not stay back in 17th place in these dry conditions. Her and Richard Gonda are looking to try and make some moves. And also watch out for the LSA and Martinez Lazarus Racing Lamborghini. That's being shared by former Ferrari Challenge star and also Blancpain GT Racing star Ezequiel Perez Compact. That's back in 18th place. Also Denis Remenyenko's second Get Speed Racing Mercedes shares that car Fabian Schiller, and that car was at one point leading the race ahead of Giacomo Toei at one point. I'm pleased to say Elliot was joining me in the commentary box here for this second race of the weekend, and with much brighter conditions, Elliot possibly could see back to the form we saw back at Silverstone, maybe a bit more of what we saw yesterday. Could be a bit of an interesting race.
Yeah, because of the wet weather that inflicted Saturday's running event, we didn't really see the true pace of these cars in the dry until the very last few laps of yesterday's race, and that was full of excitement. So I expect the same for the whole race duration today.
Got plenty of onboard cameras. This is Alain Cordair in the TM Martin Motorsport McLaren, also brought on board with the Tom Onslow-Cole Mercedes as well, including a couple of others. And we're all getting set. The tension is mounting, and it's going to be another fascinating race. The safety car will pull off, everyone in 2x2 formation, and we are all getting ready for race 2 of the penultimate round of the 2019 International GT Open Championship. Points leader Albert Costa on the left on pole position. Alongside him on the right is Tom Onslow-Cole in the Mercedes, but watch for the McLarens, the Lamborghinis of Emil Frey, and also the Mercedes further back in the top 10. They come up 2x2 towards the lights. Watch for them when they come on screen on the left of the corner. When they go green, they'll make the sprint down towards turn 1. Who's going to get the whole shot? Watch for the lights. They go green, and we're racing once again in race 2. And also good stuff on just Arabi from the second row. We're charging away from the line. And now we see on board with Alain Cordair. He's blocked by Michael Grenier on the sprint down towards turn 1, up towards the first corner. And looking for the lead now. There goes Andres Arabi looking up the inside line of Albert Costa, but he can't make it through. And also cracking start from looks like Guillaume Salas. He's up to what was 8th, they'll get up to 4. Few cars taking off to the runoff area. Got to be careful they don't get an advantage, otherwise they will get penalties. Up through turns 1, 2 and 3. Everyone's got through safely this time. No dramas whatsoever. But it's Costa leads the way. A great start from Grenier into Sarabi into second place with 3rd on the grid. It's 3rd and 5th for Grenier. 4th for Guillaume Salas, 5th for Alain Cordair, 6th for Loris Spinelli, and that's for Tom Onslow-Cole, Elliott. A poor start, back down to 7th from the front row of the grid.
Yeah, because it's a rolling start, it looked like Tom Onslow-Cole was very slow to actually get the car in gear. And he looks like he's going to gain a place actually around turn 5 ahead of one of the Lamborghinis. But he's already shot down the order several places. Yeah,
he's getting swamped by Franck Pereira there, and also going up the inside of him is Franck Pereira. Tom Onslow-Cole runs deep. He's also under pressure for Enrique Chavez, who's lost a couple of spots in the mix. This is Eliseo Martinez, who's now sitting behind Federico Leo in the Ombra Racing Lamborghini, but they head out through Camps Corner for the first time all together. And already Albert Costa trying to banish the poor race yesterday by pulling away in the lead. Already now Tom Onslow-Cole after that poor start from the front row, and everyone behind is stacking up behind Enrique Chavez. He's got Franck Pereira in there. Dominic Shandov runs wide on the exit. That can now allow Matthias Lizowski into the mix in the Olymp Racing Audi R8. Also in there too is, looks like that's Indy Donche in there as well. He's lost a couple of spots. To come into the chicane for the first time, but already Albert Costa trying to make a clear break here. 2nd for Andres Sarabia, 3rd for Michael Grenier, 4th for Alain Cordair. Great start for Alain Cordair. He seems to be the second sort of hair in that 3-car team for the Teo Martin squad, and it seems like Enrique Chavez, Elliott, struggling in this opening lap so far.
Definitely, and the Cordair car will have to make up for what happened in yesterday's race, and the unfortunate ending between the two teams. To complete the first lap, there's already a 1.1 second lead for Albert Costa, so he's escaped the threat of those behind.
Watch for the two Mercedes in 5th and 6th. We've got, of course, let's say the Brazilian Guilherme Salas, who shares about the Marcio Basso. Strong start for them, starting about 8th on the grid, up now to 6th, and also Loris Spinelli's up 4 spots. There he is, the guy who won the race on the road yesterday, up from 10th to 6th position. But at the end of the first lap, you're absolutely right, Albert Costa does lead by 1.1 seconds. Michael Grenier's 3rd. Then it's Alan Coder 4th, Guilherme Salas 5th, then it's Spinelli, Tom Onslow down to 7th, Chavez 8th, Pereira 9th, and Frederick Schandorf in 10th position. And here's what happened before, and this is interesting. Tom Onslow drifted wide into turn 1. That put Spinelli off the road, and a couple of others. Schandorf went off the road, also so it looks like Rafael Gianmaria, and did others. This is Tom Onslow view, getting swamped by cars in front of him. He's got the Alan Coder McLaren right in front there. This is further back. And that's the corner where the Olymp Racing got into trouble before, and he just hip and shouldered the number 19 Raton Racing Lamborghini of Rafael Gianmaria. There's more contact further back. I think that was actually, once again, the number 19 car getting a second whack, this time by Ollie Wilkinson and the Aston Martin.
And the Aston Martin has so far proven to be the fastest in the speed trap as well, with a 262.7 km/h figure. The lead car of Albert Costa is already way ahead. Going down the run to turn 10, it was at least maybe 15 car lengths back. Obviously, it closed up under braking, but he's pulled away once again, heading into the final sector of the lap.
So as they do come through the final sector, it is Costa from Sarabia, then Grenier and Coder. So it's still, as it tends to be in this championship so far, Lamborghini from McLaren, Lamborghini, McLaren. But based on their previous form in the last couple of rounds, Alan Coder, they seem to have found something at Teo Martin with that car, because it's normally, with respect, the third best of the cars in their 3-car squad, but they really have found something here at Barcelona, particularly during testing and free practice. They managed to pull themselves into a really good position pace-wise. He's all over the back of Michael Grenier as they start lap 3. Gap is now 1.3 seconds already between Albert Costa and Andres Sarabia. And it's Michael Grenier 3rd, Coder 4th, then the 3 Mercedes, in fact, of Salas, Spinelli and Onslow Cole, then Chavez 8th, Pereira 9th, and Schandorf in 10th. And just for the record, it is Costa who leads the Pro class. Alan Coder leads Pro-Am by quite a way from Tom Onslow Cole. And the Am category back in 20th place, led by Giuseppe Cipriani, looking for his second win of the weekend.
Yeah, and John Schaffner was actually leading that Am class around the first lap of the race, before Cipriani got through. Tom Onslow Cole must be ruining that poor start now, because he was quite far ahead in the Pro-Am classification after qualifying. Obviously, he was threatened for overall pole. And now he's 3 cars behind his class leader.
Well, his first sector, you talk about that, his first sector was effectively matching some of the fastest guys at the front of the field. He did a 30.8 in the first sector on this lap alone. The cars in front did 31.0, 31.1. So he is lapping a little bit quicker on that first sector. Let's see how he goes in the second sector. Now he's caught up in the turbulent air behind the other 2 Mercedes in front of him. Of course, the Guilherme Salas car, the black car with the red stripe from Sports and New Racing. And then we've got the Antonelli car of Loris Spinelli, which he's sharing with Riccardo Agostini. As the leading quartet head into Bank de Sabadell. We've got a great view of the commentary box. We can see them in the distance, just watching the cars going through that section and up into the chicane. And Albert Costa, as you say, Elliot, has got several car links on the battle for 2nd, 3rd and 4th. And what's interesting watching that is that Sarabia has been caught a little bit in this point in time by Grenier and Coder. Those front three are only covered really by roughly around 2.5, 3 seconds. So I think if they can keep close with each other, there could be a chance for them to battle, but they've got to be careful that, again, like what happened yesterday, the 2 TMI cars don't fight too much, otherwise it could be deja vu from yesterday.
Yeah, and Sarabia did, of course, take the victory after the stewards' decisions in yesterday's race with Fran Reda as his teammate. So he could get a double win this weekend, which would certainly boost his position in the point standings.
Certainly could. Of course, the 2 Teo Martin McLarens, this car, of course, the car driven by Enrique Chavez and Martin Coldridge, and their teammates Reda and Sarabia, and are equal on points on 93, and both of them equal, and now only 7 points behind the Costa and Giacomo Toei Lamborghini now coming into this race. So it means they've closed up now. Costa now needs to try and score as many points as he can and put as many cars as he can now, if possible, between himself and Sarabia. Otherwise, it's going to see them only extend their points advantage by a little bit by the time they leave here.
And this is where the cars of Alan Coder and Tom Onslow Cole come into play, because they are, of course, in a different class. So they're scoring points separately to these pro drivers. So even though they may have 5 cars between them, if they're all of different class, it's only two cars instead.
It is very true, and we saw yesterday, even though he was a lap behind, just what kind of pace Tom Onslow Cole really did have, because yes, he was given the warning several times, he had to respect the blue flags, but at the same time, he couldn't help that he was lapping as quick, if not a little bit quicker than the leading cars behind, who were coming up behind him to lap him. So that's interesting. Now, turn 1, lap 1 is under investigation because there were about 5 or 6 cars that did take the runoff area, and whether or not they're judging to see how many cars, if any, gained the advantage because of that, to try and avoid any shenanigans, like it was in race 1 yesterday, remains to be seen. If there's any penalties, it will flash up on our timing screen. Nothing yet, but they're having a look at it to see if anyone did do anything that was penalty-worthy. Still on board with Adam Coder now, still staring at the back of the Michael Grenier Lamborghini. And I have to say at the moment that not only is Michael Grenier not really keeping with Andres Rabi, he is really falling into the clutches of Elan Coder at the moment. So the two Teo Martin McLarens, over this Emil-Frey Lamborghini at least, have an advantage at the moment.
Yeah, and another of the Pro-Am drivers, Mateusz Owaski in the number 77 Olymp Racing Audi, is under investigation as well for that starting procedure. Not sure if that was one of the cars that went off through the kind of escape road, we could call it, that they've made at turn 1 now.
It could be. I know he also made some contact with the Raton Racing Lamborghini at turn 4 as well, so this is a starting procedure though, not contact, because it would have been an incident between himself and car 19 if it was going to be a collision. So whether he was starting out of position or started too soon, we'll have to wait and see what comes up with that. We go back on board with Alain Coder through Repsol corner, keeping the top 2 in sight, but Albert Costa's not wasting any time here. 2.6 seconds to the good. His last lap was, unsurprisingly, the fastest lap of the race, 1:47.2. He's lapping at least 7 tenths quicker than anyone else out there. So at the moment, he is fired up to put the the misfortune of yesterday, finishing out some of the points well behind him, and to put himself and Giacomo Altori back on track for the title with a strong win today if he can get it.
Yeah, it's very interesting that the 2 cars we're watching now for their speed, Albert Costa and Alain Coder, they finished in 11th and, I believe, 13th yesterday. So terrible results for both of them, but they've clearly got the pace in these drier and warmer conditions to fight at the front.
Keeping tabs on the cars behind the top 4, Guillaume Salas' last lap was actually about 10th quicker than Alain Coder. He did a personal best of a 1:48.0. Loris Spinelli was able to match effectively Alain Coder's time last time in 6th position. And as for Tom Onslow-Cole, despite the strong qualifying this morning, isn't really able to get any pace. He was 2 tenths slower than Spinelli on the last lap. Enrique Chavez is back in 8th, Franck Pereira 9th, and Frederic Schandorf in 10th position. And as for other cars that haven't really made that much progress, all right, Ollie Wilkinson has made up a couple of spots into 13th place, as we see Pierre Fellioni in the Boots and Guignon car running off all by himself. So even though it's nice to see Boots and Guignon here this weekend in the championship, they haven't really had the most luck this weekend with their 2 drivers, with Pierre Fellioni and Claudia Gosselin. And they've really struggled a little bit to adapt to GT Open. Behind here we see a battle between Schandorf and that is Franck Pereira off the road onto the runoff area. Goes Schandorf, so possibly thought, well, I'm going to try and turn in, but thought, oh, forget that, I might make contact. So he went off the runoff area. He's got to be careful. He doesn't maintain too much of advantage, because if he does, that could be seen as gaining advantage. He might be moving over to try and let him through here, I'm not sure, but if he's deemed to have gained advantage by staying ahead because of that, he could be under investigation for that and could even get a penalty for running off the road when he didn't have to.
The idea of the new escape road at turn 1 is that you do slow down, back off, and rejoin the track as safely as possible. Obviously on lap 1, when you've got cars behind you and was essentially a single lane escape road, you can't really back off because you're more likely to cause more crashes. But in this circumstance, you really should be slowing down as much as you can.
And Schandorf didn't actually take the escape road. He cut across in the part of the circuit which was the runoff area, which is between the track and the runoff area. Right now, team manager of car 20, that's Tom Onslow-Cole, to report to race control immediately. But again, for what we don't know, but currently running in 7th place at the moment. We know he did run a little bit wide into turn 1. Whether that was just out braking himself, I'm not sure. A little bit of bumping match going on between Franck Pereira and Frederic Schandorf. And Schandorf certainly trying to give as best as he can. These 2 Lamborghinis certainly having a great scrap here as they come into bump back to Sabadell. This is over 9th place and 10th. This is over the final spots in the top 10. They're just ahead of the, effectively, the very similar car in terms of its platform, the Audi R8 of Olymp Racing, with Matis Lazowski behind the 11th place. Other cars that are struggling a bit down the order, trying to make up some spots. Ollie Wilkinson is in 13th place in the number 96 Optum Motorsport Aston Martin. He'll hand over to Darren Turner in the pit stop phase. Also down the field a little bit is also Miguel Ramos in car number 10, the SPS Automotive car that took pole yesterday in mixed conditions, but he's down in 15th place. Also, Eliseo Martinez in the Lazarus cars down in 17th. Bajska Vista down in 18th. These cars not on the same pace that we've seen them before in the last couple of rounds, struggling in these hot conditions here at Barcelona.
Yeah, Bajska Vista's actually just overtaken Eliseo Martinez, but the fact that both of them are battling with each other has meant they've dropped over 4 seconds to Federico Leo ahead of them, who's currently in 16th place.
So, still no news as to exactly what the reason for being called to the race control for the team manager of Tom Onslow-Cole's car at this stage, but the three Mercedes having a bit of a fight of their own here, just neatly behind the top four. So Guillaume Salas in the Sporting new car, I think that's one of that's best runs so far at the moment, in 5th position facing the race. Yesterday's on-track winner, Loris Benetti, 6th, and Tom Onslow Cole 7th, but looking pretty spread out from each other, so having their own separate battle, but not getting too close at the moment.
Yeah, and I've just noticed there's a car about 2 corners ahead of our leader, which is a Stanislav Jelinski solo-driven OLED Racing Mercedes, and that could be lapped in the next few laps, which could seriously cut down Albert Costa's lead.
Well, he's just gone past the pits now, and the lead is coming out of Bank de Sabadell up towards the chicane. So you're absolutely right, it's a few corners ahead. So at the pace that Albert Costa's running, I mean, the last lap was 1:48.0 compared to 2 minutes 3.0. So that's a really significant pace difference. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't catch it by the end of this lap. He'll definitely, he's going on to, he definitely will by the end of the next one. So the second, third, and fourth make their way together out of the final corner onto the pit straight. Still Sarabia in second place in the lead. Teo Martin McLaren. Third place for Alain Cordaire. I think there was a bit of a flashlight. So third place for Michael Grenier, forgive me. Fourth place for the Pro-Am leader, Alain Cordaire, who was giving a bit of a flash of the headlights to Michael Grenier. It's great to see that, yes, you've got Pro-Am, and Am category cars, but it's great to see so many of the Pro-Am cars mixing amongst the Pro-Class cars, so showing just how quick some of these alleged amateur drivers, if you like, are mixing it in terms of these guys who do this more regularly in GT racing, like Blancpain, GT Open, a lot more of these regular GT competitions around Europe and around the world. Great to see these Pro-Am cars getting amongst it and actually having a genuinely on-paced race against some of the cars that are deemed to be in a class higher than they are.
Definitely, and with the Alain Cordaire car, which is our leading Pro-Am, it was obviously in the hands of Marcelo Hahn when the error occurred yesterday, which cost Teo Martin. But I think with the Pro-Am lineups, they are designed so the drivers complement each other and the Pro driver gets the most out of the Am drivers possible, because the difference between the best and the worst Ams is a lot bigger than the difference between the best and the worst Pros.
I think also the Pro gets a satisfaction from helping out the Am to become quicker, so that means that they get to really work together and form a bond. And there are some great teams out there. One is Tom Onslow Cole and Valentin Pierre, but they've been together now. This is their second or third season in that car, effectively, after they raced here in this team in this championship last year. They've filled a really good bond, and Valentin's getting quicker and quicker as he keeps on learning from Tom Onslow Cole throughout the season and throughout every session he takes part in. So it's good to see these partnerships forming up and actually getting a nice bond, so that means it's almost good synchronicity between the two drivers. It means when they do go out on track, they can read each other and know exactly where to improve and which areas.
Yeah, and the confidence the Pro driver can give them actually does sometimes lead to a career change. Some of these Ams do become pros themselves, not only in classes, but as paid professionals in their racing careers as well.
It's crazy what the influence of a racing driver can have on somebody else who's doing that same sport. We're now at the end of lap 8 now. Lead gap is 4 seconds between leader Albert Costa and second place Andres Sarabia. Michael Grenier still stays in third position. There's Alain Cordaire in fourth place in the dark blue McLaren in fourth. Fifth place still for Guillaume Salas. Loris Benetti sixth. Tom Onslow Cole seventh, and the trio of Mercedes there. Back behind them for eighth position. Here comes Frederick Schandorf diving up the inside into turn one on front Pereira. Around the outside of them comes the Audi of Lazowski off the road. He almost got past both of them over the runoff area. He's going to have to give those places back, otherwise he will get a penalty for it. And initially on that one, Elliot, he's not been so winning on that one. He's actually got past both of them. He may argue he was forced off the road, but that's a bit naughty, that one. He got past both of them, and he isn't letting them back through at the moment.
Yeah, if it's your choice to go free wide into turn one, you've got to respect the consequences of that if it doesn't turn out.
Well, he's held on for the moment, so in reality, he may be told over the radio, as I'd like to think he would be, to give those places back, as now looking back up the inside to repass Schandorf is Franck Pereira in the green and black Raton Racing Lamborghini. His teammate Raffaele Giammaria is back in 14th place behind Ollie Wilkinson, who is not the fastest in the speed trap. That is actually now the Lazowski Olymp Racing Audi, with 265.3 kilometres an hour in the speed trap. And actually, now he's got past both of them, although rather dubiously, we admit, he is now getting onto the back here, as that is the number 5 Jedlinski Mercedes that was finally getting out of the way and has been caught by the leaders. And that allowed both Michael Grenier and Alain Cordaire to close in onto second place man Andres Sarabia. Meanwhile, Albert Costa's carried on his lead, 4.3 seconds. So he's got like a piece of debris, a piece of plastic bag or something hanging off the side of his window.
I think that's the number, just like triathletes almost.
Oh, it is actually. Yes, no, you're right. Absolutely right. So it's not been stuck on properly, so they won't help it aerodynamically. But even so,
well, we better remember his number now before it comes off entirely.
Number 63. Make a mental note. Anyway, still leads the way by 4.5 seconds. Miguel Grenier in third place behind second place man Andres Sarabia. Alain Cordaire's dropped back a little bit behind Michael Grenier now through that sequence. Guillaume Salas still there. As Jedlinski, I can see on the pit straight, is just very neatly letting everyone through. It's good drive from Stanislav, well done. So rest of the top 10 still. It's Cordaire in fourth, Salas fifth, Benetti sixth, Tom Onslow Cole still seventh. then it's Enrique Chavez, Frederick Schandorf, and then Franck Pereira. And that actually won't. At the moment, it'll actually be Lizowski, of course, but then whether he'll get a penalty for getting an advantage off the track, which I think to be rare, realistically, you probably might do. Though actually, they've gone past the pits now, and actually, he's been classified behind Schandorf and Pereira, so I think he has been given the message, give the place back, otherwise we will get a penalty for that.
Yep, and then we have 4 of the Pro-Am cars separated by less than a second. They're currently battling for third in their class as the cars of Alan Cadet and Thomas Zakola escapes up front. Although I don't imagine Emile Frey choosing to do this, but Albert Costa could get out the car in 6 minutes, as that's when the driver switchover period starts. They could put his teammate Jacome Altoe in the car, and he could, because obviously he's the semi-pro, you could say, in line. He's a lot less experienced than Costa, and obviously he'd appreciate the experience of getting as many laps as possible around this track.
Yeah, Giacomo's quite young. He's mainly experienced over in TCR racing. He's done TCR Europe and driven several TCR cars, but he's made the switch now to GT racing and done it pretty seamlessly. Now, what's interesting here, you mentioned about that 4-car scrap for the Pro-Am cars. This is it on screen here. So Frederick Schandorf leads Franck Pereira, who leads Matthias Lizowski. Then we've got Indy Donche. Then at the back of this train, that's becoming a 5-car scrap, which is the pro car of the Aston Martin, of Ollie Wilkinson and Darren Turner. Now, the incident, just quickly, you plot some of the time on the screen.
It's another pro car that's been involved in this battle as well, because an incident involving Enrique Chavez, who is the pro at Teo Martin, and the Franck Pereira car is currently under investigation at turn 14, which would be the chicane towards the end of the lap.
Yeah, now I have to admit, I don't think that's one we've seen, so if the camera's caught it or if there's exactly information exactly what that was, we'll have to find that out. But Enrique Chavez has carried on nonetheless. And fastest lap of the race again from Albert Costa, 47.0, back up to 5 seconds. I think he's making a point, isn't he, that yesterday was basically just a blot on the copybook, but it ain't happening again today.
Yeah, it's usual weather conditions, you could say, and it's a usual race performance from Albert Costa.
Absolutely. Yeah, flapping door number or not, he's still running a good pace here as he comes up through Sayat Corner. Car looking nice and sort of undramatic, but usually the most undramatic is the fastest.
And the Stanislaw Jelinski car is so far off the pace that it's been lapped by the AM class leader Giuseppe Cipriani now, down in 20th place. That's how far behind the Mercedes has fallen.
Well, he's running at his own pace and he's learning at his own pace, I guess, in many cases, although it may get to a point, I don't wish to sound harsh here, but it may get to a point where if the stewards themselves, if they deem that he's lapping too slow, they may decide to possibly throw like a black and white flag or even a black flag out at him again. But that's just their option in terms of if they choose to do it, if they feel that he's lapping slow enough.
And he's had no blue flag warnings yet, unlike Mr. Thomas Zakola in yesterday's race.
But then again, he was moving out very safely out of the way of everyone else. He was keeping out of the way of the battles, which is good to see. So, team manager of car 6 was told to report, that's Laura Spinelli, to report to race control immediately. It flashed up for a second, now it's been wiped off the screen. So, whether that was a bit of a glitch or not, there's Jacome Altoe warming up and limbering up for his stint in the car. Back to our scrap for second, third and fourth. There's Michael Grenier in the second Emile Frey Lamborghini, still giving chase to Andres Sarabia, yesterday's race winners. And Andres Sarabia will hand over to Fran Rueda in the pit stops, which are coming up in about 4 minutes' time. Gap is now 5.7 seconds between the leader and second place. Sarabia second, Grenier still third. Alan Cordero doing well in fourth. Now then, car 6 is being told to give back the position to car 20, which is Tom Onslow Cole, for an incident at turns 1 and 2 in lap 1. Now, I think we did see they went side by side into turns 1 and 2, but after that investigation, they've been told they have to switch places now. There's a gap of 1.4 seconds, so Spinelli has to back off and allow him through. And of course, then Tom Onslow Cole can get through, but of course, then if he wants to repass him, he'll have to do that on pace alone.
And we don't know how many laps he's kind of given to concede this position and then be able to fight it back, because obviously he doesn't want to lose 3 seconds in one lap, which potentially may cool down the tyres if he's deliberately lifting off the throttle.
And that could have an effect also on pit stop strategy as well, because of course with 3.5 minutes to go with the pit window, less than that even, if those two pit at the same time, it'll be a case of who could be quicker in the pit stops by within the allotted time they're allowed to do the pit stop, get them out again, and if it means that their co-drivers have to go and fight it out on track to decide who comes out on top once they do switch places. So here's that fight just behind them, with Frederick Schandorf now just being put under pressure still from Franck Pereira, and also doing well is the Matthias Lizowski car. There are the 2 cars in question. Number 6 is going through the shot, and there car number 20. There's the message on the screen. Car number 6, Laura Spinelli, must give the position back to car 20 for the incident at turns 1 and 2 on lap 1. So this car number 20, must be allowed by the car in front. Otherwise, I think there might be more ramifications if he doesn't. So Spinelli then, at the moment, I presume he would have been told on the radio to do so. I think he might be waiting until he gets to the pit straight. to find a clean spot to let him pass, but we'll wait and see if he does let him through on here. And if he does, you expect him to move to one side, lift off the throttle and allow him through. Nothing yet, but he's keeping it close at the moment. Now then, meanwhile, Franck Pereira, whilst we're looking at that, has got past Frederick Schandorf. There's a change for 9th position then. As back with our trio of Mercedes. Still no change between Spinelli and Alonso Cole as instructed. There's Enrique Chavez in something of no man's land in the third of the Teo Martin McLarens. And then this scrap that's changed now, Pereira and Schandorf. And here is how it happened. Schandorf outbraking himself into the left-hander at the Lakaisha hairpin, out over the curb, and it was a pretty straightforward overtake. Pereira said, if you're going to run wide, I'll just slip up the inside and take it all day long. And now we've got a warning flag for car 90, which is from Pereira. That's for light contact with car 59 at turn 14, but that's at the chicane. So whether that was later on around that lap, or whether that was early on in the race, we'll have to wait and see. But they've been given effectively a black and white flag, basically saying, we've acknowledged it, you've done that, just be careful, otherwise you will get a penalty next time there's any more contact. Yeah,
they're being very lenient to him, but they still don't want him to make another error of judgment. A lot of the time we see these clashes in International GT Open are happening at the front of the field when the stakes are at their very highest in the closing minutes of the race, and the drivers are fighting out for the overall and class wins.
It does get pretty tense at the front in the International GT Open. Whether you're a leader or in the mid-pack or even towards the rear, you always find somebody to race with, and usually you can have a good battle. And it does entertain the crowds. Like I said, especially in the front grandstand here, there's a lot of spectators here enjoying the Barcelona sunshine for International GT Open. Plenty of people watching on this weekend. And what's interesting now is this battle for second, third, and fourth has hit a little bit of a stalemate now. There's not really anyone making a move here, unless they're waiting for their co-drivers to jump in at the pit stops, because that might start to change up, because all these three cars, for all we know, have very different strategies. Down the pit straight comes, you see there, Michael Grenier still chasing after Andres Sarabia. And it does seem as though on the straight, even though the two cars behind Sarabia have the tow, pace-wise, they're all very evenly matched. Looking at lap times, it was a 1:48.0 for fourth place Coder, 48.1 for Grenier, 48.2 for Sarabia, whilst in front of them, Albert Costa's in the 1:47. So he's absolutely sailing away now, and I think these three cars may be coping not as well in the warm conditions as Costa is right now in the lead.
Alternatively, Sarabia could be keeping a little bit of extra life in his tyres, but has enough pace to hold back Grenier, so the second McLaren can then get a little closer and make a move.
Definitely. Just a signal on the timing screen and also on the screen here, that the pit stop window is now open, which means that they've got now 12 minutes to make their pit stop. So when the clock hits the 24 minutes to go, that will be the end of the pit window. Also, we've seen, I think, possibly for what happened at turn 1 and 2, I think, Matthias Lezowski in the Audi has been given basically a warning flag for track limits. That must be when he tried to go three wide with Schandorf and Pereira into turn 1, went over the runoff area, and then spent about a lap trying to give that place back. In many cases, as Coder gets a little sideways chasing after the men in second and third place.
And one driver who hasn't given a place back is Loris Spinelli. He's still ahead of Tom Onzo Cole, and I believe it's been 2 or 3 laps since that penalty decision per se was awarded to the driver of the number 6 Mercedes.
You're absolutely right, still showing as him in there. I think first car that's diving in is the number 11 Get Speed performance from Mercedes of
John
Schaffner. So Janine Hill would jump in that, the British lady. And so that's the first pit stop happening in sequence then. They are officially the first cars in. Also behind them is the Pierre Ferlioni car. And also into the pit lane, crucially, second and third place are both in. So Alain Coder carries on in the Teo Martin McLaren, but Andres Sarabia and Michael Grenier are both in together. So the first 4 cars in, the Get Speed Mercedes. And
Spinelli's pitted as well. Is that a sneaky way of letting Tom Onzo Cole pass?
I wonder if that is to gain a little bit less time. Actually, if that was the case, there might be a bit of a sneaky tactic. So if they've played that right and they get away with that, that might be quite crucial. So pit stops in earnest then. Fran Raider jumps in on Andres Sarabia.
I don't think he has got away with it, because the team manager of the Spinelli car has been asked to go to race control.
So I think he waited a bit too long for that, didn't he? So he didn't quite get away with it. I think we take that back. So plenty of cars in then. We've got the Butsenguignon Lamborghini, the number 10 Miguel Ramos SPS Automotive Mercedes, also the Zenkia Motorsport BMWs in the pit lane. So Beitskevissa will hand over to Richard Gonda, also in his Eliseias Martinez, and he will give that car over to Ezekiel Perez Compact in car number 27. Here's your leader, Albert Costa. Here's more pit stops in earnest. You see there to the right, that's Martin Kodrich jumping in place of Enrique Chavez in that Teo Martin McLaren. So both of the sort of predominantly white McLarens in the pit lane. You see there Fran Marade and Andres Sarabia completing their pit stop very shortly. And the handicap at the bottom there says that basically that is the minimum pit stop time they must have. So for them, for that car there, the Enrique Chavez and Martin Kodrich car, their pit stop must be minimum of 70 seconds. Otherwise, if you go out too late, or too early, then you do get a time penalty for the amount of time which you were too short. So, for example, if you do a 65-second pit stop and you were supposed to do 70, you get a 5-second time penalty for being 5 seconds too short when you came in for your driver change.
Yep, and the taped-on number of our leader, Albert Costa, is still flapping as he enters the pits. He'll be handing over to his teammate, Giacomo Altoa, who we did see warming up earlier, so he should be ready by now to get in that car.
Should be. So it's a crucial point then. Race and championship leader Albert Costa brings the leading Lamborghini into the pit lane. One car that keeps on going through it and actually takes over the lead is the Alam Cordair Teo Martin McLaren. So the 63 hits the stops and immediately up into the air on the jacks. Off go the Michelin tyres, and straight away jumping in is Giacomo Altoa. Albert Costa will help to strap him in. And unlike other GT and endurance racing championships, where it's usually you put the fuel in first, then tyres and driver change, it's the other way around. You do driver change and tyres first, then you do the fuel. So as the pit stops shake out, also in the pit lane is the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin. So Ollie Wilkerson jumps out, Darren Turner works Aston Martin driver, jumps in. And
the Fabrizio Crestani car, that team manager has been summoned to race control, but only a 2-second penalty has been handed to the number 6 Mercedes, which was previously driven by Laura Spinelli and was not conceding the place as requested to Tom Onzo-Cole.
Yeah, so that means obviously, I think, despite their sneaky way of trying to give that place back at the pit stops, it hasn't quite worked out because, of course, they just didn't give it up. So the steward said, right, well, if you're not going to give it up in time, we'll just give you a penalty for the time which you gained, really. So it's a shame, but I see the logic of what they were trying to do, but sadly, the pit stop winner just came a few seconds too late for them, sadly, which didn't really work out for them. So,
and our previous leader is just leaving the pits, so that leaves them at least half a minute behind the Alam Cordair car.
And interestingly enough, they've actually just come out just ahead of their teammates. Norbert Seedler's Giacomo Altoa is coming through, and Norbert Seedler's going to look up the inside line. Matteo Monfrey Racing Lamborghini is already going into combat as the pits. Now remember, Norbert Seedler's tyres will be up to temperature. Giacomo Altoa's cars will be effectively, if you like, stone cold, even though it is quite a hot circuit. So Giacomo Altoa's car needs to get up to temperature, but Norbert Seedler, who's putting him under pressure already, has already got the car running how he wants it, and so they're going to come into the battle here. This effectively could be the battle for the lead, and is that in letting him through up into Sayat corner? I think Giacomo Altoa is letting him through, so I think he's realised that his teammate is running a little bit quicker at this point in the race. So a change for the two Emil Frey Lamborghinis then. So Norbert Seedler takes over in front of his teammate Giacomo Altoa. Does that effectively give him the net lead, or will anyone else that hasn't pitted yet actually get back out again or in front of them once the pit stops will shake out?
Looking at their lap times, they're actually 3 seconds down on the Alan Cordair car that's staying out on track at the moment. So maybe doing the driver swap at a later time might be more beneficial to those few cars up front.
Whilst that's all been happening, we've seen fastest first sector set by, first of all, Martin Kodrich, who's taken from Enrique Chavez in the Teo Martin McLaren, and then Fabian Schiller in the Get Speed performance at Mercedes. But the fastest in the speed traps now is Richard Gonda's BMW, the Senkia Motorsport car, 266.0 kilometers an hour in the speed traps then. So leading cars that haven't pitted yet. Adam Correa hasn't pitted yet, neither is Tom Onslow-Cole. Front Pereira hasn't either.
And that's because they're our Pro-Am lineup, so these are the pros in the cars at the moment, so they want to keep them in as long as possible before they hand over to their AMs.
This is going to be an interesting dynamic to watch here between the two Emil Frey racing cars, because looking at that move, it simply looked as though Seedler was just allowed through by Giacomo Altoa. I think he realised that being on those warm tyres that were up to temperature, I think rather than holding him up too much, was only going to slow them both down. So letting him through at this point in time was only going to help him out in terms of letting them both get on with their races aptly enough. So Norbert Seedler then leads the way from his championship leading teammate Albert Costa and Giacomo Altoa. Altoa is at the wheel. At the moment, the top 6 cars haven't pitted yet, so we've just told team managers cars 6 and 10, which is Fabrizio Crestani and Riccardo Agostini. So that's car 6 yet again, being told to report to race control once more. So they're not having an easy day today, are they? And
Fabian Schiller is just our fastest lap of the race, down in 20th place, so 1 minute 46.226. That is around 6/10 faster than even Albert Costa was setting earlier. So a pretty impressive pace.
And they were strong yesterday with Schiller at the work, because it was Schiller versus Altoa in the first half of the race yesterday, and Schiller was the one leading, even though Altoa got right onto his back bumper towards the end of their first stint. Into the pit lane has come just in front of us on screen now, the Ombra Racing Lamborghini, so Federico Leo will hand over to the Malaysian Najib Razak. And still Adam Correa still leads the way. Remember, 4.5 minutes to go roughly in that pit window. And what they don't want to do is have a mistake that the Optima Motorsport squad made yesterday, which is to stay out beyond the pit window, otherwise they'll get a penalty for not pitting within it.
Yeah. I think one car to look at right now is the Martin Kodrich, Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. It's consistently the fastest of the pro runners at the moment, having done the driver swaps. And I believe should be potentially in the lead of that class if they continue at this rate.
We'll wait and see. Of course, Kodrich has already pitted, and he's effectively the cars in that pro class that have pitted already are the two Emil Frey racing cars, and then you've also got Martin Kodrich in third place. So Guillaume Sanz has also pitted as well, and he would have handed over, I think, to Marcio Basso.
Yeah, and the two Emil Frey Lamborghinis were about 2 to 3 seconds a lap slower, but they've now responded to the pace of the number 59 Teo Martin Motorsport McLaren. So they should retain their positions once the pit stop cycle plays out.
This is a crucial battle for position. Fabrizio Crestani in the grey and red Mercedes, Vodafone-sponsored car for SPS Automotive, battling away with the car that won yesterday's race. Fran Moreda at the wheel of the Teo Martin McLaren number 17. That's a scrap on the road at the moment for, where's that for at the moment, quickly, 13th to 14th place, but our race leader currently, Adam Cordera, is in the pits. This is crucial. He's going to hand over to Marcelo Hahn. It's the current race leading car, but now it's basically, the crucial thing is, where's he going to come out in relation to the two Emil Frey Lamborghinis? He's also got a shorter pit stop handicap, 65 seconds, so actually, that could make the difference in many cases.
Definitely could. It looks like he's already...
As he stops the wrong, the wrong pit box. Well,
now does the time stationary add to this pit stop time?
I think he stopped in the pit box of one of his Teo Martin teammates, because of course they share quite a large garage. I think they've obviously stopped in the wrong one. That is I think that's the Indy Donche car number 33. Yes, it is. So Russell Woods jumping into that car. Here are the two Teo Martin Emil Frey Lamborghinis, forgive me. So they're going to come through in the last couple of corners, but the key thing is, how quickly is Marcelo Hahn going to get back out again? And the crucial thing is that mistake going to cost him several seconds? And that sort of advantage he may have had in the pit stop handicap, has it been basically nullified by that small mistake? They're coming out of the final corner, onto the pit straight. The Marcelo Hahn McLaren has already left. And is he has the pits already? Where's he going to be in relation down the pit straight? There he is. Gets us up to speed when he gets out in front of the Lamborghinis down towards turn one. It's going to be very close indeed. Looking down the outside goes Norbert Siedler. When he gets himself in front of both of them, he gets in front of one of them, gets in the way of Giacomo Altori. So Norbert Siedler takes over in front of Marcelo Hahn. So Siedler's got through, but Giacomo Altori, though, hasn't got past yet. But I may about to eat my words for a second, because here comes Altori along the inside line, exiting Renault corner, up the inside. And the advantage they had, unfortunately, only lasts for a matter of seconds, because past him goes not only one, but both Emil Frey Lamborghinis. So at the moment, depending on where everyone else pits, they're effectively down to, you could say, roughly net third position, depending on what Onslow, Cole, Pereira and Lazowski, who haven't pitted yet, do in terms of their final pit stops. Into the pit lane come two of them. Onslow, Cole and Pereira nose to tail into the pit lane, so they'll change over to, get this right now, Valentin Pierberg and Christoph Lenz. Meanwhile, Matej Lazowski is going to also hand over to the other, Marcin Jedlinski as well. So all our final three cars that haven't pitted yet are all in for their stops. So the crucial thing is, as Tom Onslow Cole knocks over the marker board to where to stop, he'll jump out and Valentin Pierberg will get in. But where are they going to come out in relation to our current men in 4th, 5th and 6th, who I think are just coming out of the Lacaille hairpin right now and into Bank de Sabadell. And they've only just stopped. They might have a shorter pit stop time than these guys had earlier on.
Yeah, and that pit stop fumble by Marcelo, well, not Marcelo Hahn, the driver he was taking over from, cost him massively here. Because even on cold tyres, he probably would have been able to keep the lead for at least a few corners and got those tyres up to temperature before being attacked by the two Lamborghinis.
You're not wrong, you might rue that one next day later on in the race. This is a scrap between Thomas Tuchel in the Vincenzo Spiri Lamborghini, and we're riding on board with Ezekiel Perez Compact. Meanwhile, crucially, passing over to Emil Frey Lamborghinis, and crucially, they've beaten all three cars that came into the pit lane before. So, Norbert Siedler now takes the lead of the race from Giacomo Altori and Marcelo Hahn in third place. But this is the fight here. This is at the moment 17th and 18th place between Thomas Tuchel and Ezekiel Perez Compact. So two cars that were strong in the first part of the race, but now they've lost out in the pit stops by winning one of the first ones to stop. Struggling towards the back, but might have to start picking their way through the field in the latter stage of the race.
Yeah, it does mean the Marcelo Hahn car retains the Pro-Am class lead that it held before the pit stops when it was challenging the pro cars out front. The driver change period has ended now, and I think every car, the Stanislaw Jelinski got in the car at the final second, but he is on his own, obviously, so not sure how the rules apply to him.
Well, let's wait and see how they do. This is a little bit of a tete-a-tete between two Lamborghinis here. This was car 19 with now Jaiton Liang at the wheel and Najee Razak going side by side into the Lacaille hairpin. Here's two more Lamborghinis, but crucially at the front of the field, Norbert Siedler leads the way from Giacomo Altori. And here we see fastest first sector of the race, as well pointed out from Elliott on that side. This is the mistake. They're saying, well, no, wrong pit lane, wrong pit box. And he finally gets to the point, saying, no, move out of the way. The reason was that was the car behind him. That was one of the HTP cars that's coming for the pit stop, but he stopped in the wrong box. And then waving and saying, no, get out of the way. We've got our car coming in. Move, go forwards.
And that showed that replay in full. We probably only saw the last 2 seconds of that. So he cost at least maybe 6 or 7 seconds in that mistake alone.
At least 6 or 7 seconds. So it's happened in Formula 1 before. I've never seen it in GT racing before, I'll be honest, but it's the first time for everything. Meanwhile, here are our two leading Emerald Frey Lamborghinis, but it's not the order you might have expected. Norbert Siegler leads points leader Giacomo Altoe in second place. Marcel Hand in third place behind, but he's coming under threat from Guillaume Salas. Watch this then. Up the inside Guillaume Salas looks one way then the other, and the Mercedes now running very strongly in third place here. This is genuine pace from the Sports and New Racing Mercedes. He's putting Marcelo Hand under pressure here, all over him into turns 1 and 2. Both of them clip the curb through turn 1, up through turn 2 nice and smoothly. Now, has the Mercedes got the grip through turn 3 to possibly sail alongside on the approach to Repsol Corner? Incident involving cars 12 and 19, which was the little clash we had between Naji Razak and Jaiton Liang, is being investigated. Also, team manager of car 10 is being told to report to race control immediately. Only thing I can think of maybe is that maybe could be a too short a pit stop, maybe. That could be something they're getting a warning for.
I think that notification's actually been there since the pit stops, when literally as soon as Fabrizio Crestani jumped in the car. But Fabrizio Crestani was the third fastest person out of the 23 runners on that last lap.
So that car running well, and of course Fabrizio can't handle that car pretty good. He did pretty well at Silverstone, particularly when he picked up third place in the first race as well, and they have been pretty well. They haven't won a race so far this season. They've scored a few second and third places, and with their pole yesterday, you would have thought, be forgiven for thinking, it could have been a great chance for them to get a victory yesterday, but when Miguel Ramos got in the car for the second stint, when it was on that transition period, he lost pace. As up the inside for third place comes Guillaume Salas on the inside of Marcelo Hand. Nice simple move into Lakaisha hairpin. Up to third place goes the Mercedes. Down to fourth goes the McLaren. And what's also quite nice is that Valentin Pierberg, thanks to all the work which Tom Onslow-Cole did, I was about to say was in fifth position. He's been passed already looking at a commentary box by Martin Kodrich. So he's been passed there. He might also lose another place shortly to Darren Turner, who's done some good work to get up into seventh place.
It's a 5-car battle for fifth place at the moment as they're going through the final sector of the lap. So it's going to be pretty messy going down pit straight, I imagine.
Should well be. We'll keep an eye on that in a second at the corner of our eye. This is Fabian Schiller running deep and running wide and allowing Ezekiel Perez compact through. That was a move for what's now become 18th place. Further round, this is a bit of a barging match between, looks to be, that was Thomas Tuchler and Perez compact, just behind the Claude Gosselin Lamborghini for Boots and Guignon, which was about a lap behind. So lots of skirmishing going there. And here's the replay of the move up the inside of Marcelo Hand with Guillaume Salas. Easy peasy, job done. That was a great move for third place. Nice and simple. And Marcelo didn't want to get too involved. Said, look, you got the place, through you go. And he stole station in fourth place. The thing we're going to watch out now is, what are his lap times like compared to his teammate Martin Kodrich there, and this unruly mob of about 6 cars behind. They're all scrapping for the final top 10 places, as well as trying to move their way up through the order to get closer towards the podium.
Yeah, and one of those cars is the Darren Turner Aston Martin, which obviously ended its race early yesterday with the wheel problem it had. That's currently in 7th place. Not sure where it started, but it was definitely further down the order prior to these pit stops. So it must have had a blinding pit stop time.
It was around about 15th place on the grid they started, and Ollie Wilkes made up a couple of spots from the start. But again, yeah, I have to admit, yeah, this looked at one of the cars that stopped run about roughly the middle part of that pit stop window. And it seems to have really benefited them because Darren Turner's jumped in, and that car now finds itself in 7th place. So good run so far from Optimum Motorsport. They've got plenty of experience, of course, having run that car all season in the British GT Championship, of course, which Ollie Wilkes is the Silver Cup champion. Up the inside for the pass, which effectively is him repassing. It's kind of reverse of what he should have done on track before he got the 2-second penalty, is Riccardo Agostini passing the 20-car Valentin Pierberg. But this time, he doesn't have to give it up. That's now a legit pass now. He's not going to get a penalty for repassing him because he's made the move stick now.
Yeah, he's done the job that he needs to get done. The top two are still separated by just over a second. They're fairly evenly matched over the lap as our next set of cars come through to the final corner. Here's a replay of the number 20 Mercedes under attack from the number 6 Mercedes, I believe that is. Can't quite see the number at the side.
Yeah, that was Riccardo Agostini, a replay of his move up the inside of Valentin Pierberg, and that was for position. That's moved him up to 7th position now at the expense of the number 20 car. That's the second of the 2 SPS automotive cars. There is the other car, of course, I think running just behind it, which is Fabrizio Crestani. Yep, so the 2 SPS team cars running in formation ahead of yesterday's race winner, Fran Nareda in 10th position. And at the moment, pace-wise, I think it's safe to say the two ML Frey cars have this race at the moment firmly tucked up in bed at the moment. They've got a gap of about a second between each other, but at least 10 or 11 seconds over the rest of the field. So this battle for third place could be quite fascinating by the end of the race. Looking at the order down the field, so Guillaume Salas holding on station in third place, Marcelo Han in fourth, Martin Kodrich is fifth. Heard a bit of a screech of tyres somewhere in the background, so whether that was down at turn 5 on the cameras, as Fran takes a look up the inside of Fabrizio Crestani, under the wide on the exit of the curb.
And the number 27 of Esquil Perez Companc, that has disappeared from our timing screens very briefly. We expected that car to make progress up the order early on. It's reappeared. It has lost 10 seconds in the first sector alone on that lap, down in 19th place.
So
that's probably the tyre squealing.
That's probably the tyre score we heard then. So because we did hear something that's someone possibly going off the road the first couple of corners maybe. We might get a replay of that if it comes up. But sneaking up the inside of his teammate goes Fabrizio Crestani, past Valentin Pierberg, and there goes Fran Moreda, says, oh, don't mind if I do. I'll take the place as well if you're going to open the door. So that's 2 places for the price of 1 in terms of what Valentin Pierberg's lost. And now Fran Moreda has got a proper chance to start to chase after Crestani as they come out through the final corner of New Holland onto the pit straight once again. Here's the replay, and that is right. That's the car we heard spinning off. Ezequiel Perez Companc just touches the gravel trap, but manages to very gently get back on the throttle. Here's the onboard shot. Oh, how lucky was the Get Speed car not to tag him either. That was the Mercedes of Fabian Schiller going through, and that has been moving up to 18th place.
The 2 places Valentin Pierberg's lost, which we're just seeing a replay of now, means he's genuinely under threat for position in class from Christoph Lenz and Marcelin Judinski in the Pro-Am class behind him.
It's a good spot. It's a good spot, actually, yeah, because, of course, he's second place in the Pro-Am category. Still leading that class is Marcelo Han. And just behind him now on track here is this great battle here between these 2 cars.
But Pierberg's just been handed a 10-second time penalty to be added to his race time, less time handicap. I imagine that's to do with the pit stops.
Yeah, that'll be his pit stop that was 10 seconds too short, sadly. So looks as though whatever's currently at the moment second place in Pro-Am is going to be a lot lower down by the time he's finished off. And this is a good battle here, but it's developing. Behind the Marcelo Han McLaren is one of his teammates, Martin Kodrich. He's coming under threat from the Aston Martin Works driver, Darren Turner, the 96 Optum car. The Aston Martin chasing down the 2 McLarens. The flash of the headlights there just behind from, in the background, Riccardo Agostini as he moves past.
As the 2 Mercedes, one dives down to the inside of the other at the hairpin. I believe that is the number 6.
Yeah, that was Agostini putting a lap on the Mercedes that he was putting a lap on. I think that was possibly the Janine Hill car. I think number 11 was putting a lap on there. So he was moving through to keep up with these 2 who are battling away over 5th and 6th position. So Kodrich holds on to 5th position. Darren Turner wants it, and the pair are both closing in pretty quickly on Kodrich's teammate Marcelo Han, and what could potentially turn out to be 4th place for one of these cars, depending on who can make the move on who quickest. So down the pit straight again, about 15 and a quarter minutes to go in this second race of the weekend, the penultimate meeting of the season for the International GT Open Championship in 2019 here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. We've still got the season finale in about 3 weeks' time at the Autodromo Nazionale Monza in Italy to finish off the title. And so far, at the moment, points-wise, the second place car, Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa, that leads the championship, has got a decent enough points advantage in this race, at least over the 2 McLarens, which is currently tied for the moment on points. At the moment, if it stays as it is, I think looking at it, that Kodrich will take a couple of points advantage at least over its teammates, depending on how well everyone else around it in the points does.
And the Stanislaw Jelinski car, which is the one that got lapped very early on in the AM class, has actually been in the pits since it entered at the end of the drive change window. I believe we can see it in pit lane with its lights on, but its bonnet up. It doesn't look like it's re-entering the race anytime soon.
No, sadly looks like the Jedlinski, I think you're right on that one. The Olymp Racing Mercedes looks to be unfortunately out of the race. It's showing as being pit in many cases, but it's not come out for the last, 11 or 12 laps or so, so it's 12 laps down in many cases. So that's not going to go any further. What could go further now is these 2 trying to move past Marcelo Han. And
the sneaky pit stop strategy to give back the place by Loris Spinelli to the Tom Onslow Cole car has actually worked, because the 2-second penalty has been taken away.
So it looks like they've noticed that and thought, oh, you did actually give the position back before we went to give you the penalty, so we'll give you the 2 seconds back then. So that's quite smart for those. Now, what's interesting here is that, I hate to say it, but Marcelo Han is once again getting himself involved with one of his teammates whilst he's battling for position. So Marcelo Han now has got 3 cars stacking up behind him. We've got his teammate Martin Kodrich, this car Darren Turner, and Riccardo Agostini all lining up behind him. This is now 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th, all in a line together, and Turner now starting to line up the 2 McLarens for a move possibly to turn 1. You might get one of them. Kodrich darts out to get past his teammate, who lets him through, and through the middle comes Darren Turner. Can he get up the inside line? Not quite, but that was a bit of a sneaky tactic there. I think Marcelo Han realised, I'm not having a repeat of yesterday, moved to the inside, backed off to let his teammate through, almost let Darren Turner get alongside his Kodrich, but couldn't get far enough up the inside to make that move. So he's now going to come under threat from Riccardo Agostini. And of course, he's now still leading the Pro-Am category anyway, so he's got quite a bit of a gap on the cars behind in 2nd place, which is Valentin Pierberg, and 3rd place Christoph Lenz.
Yeah, he's doing a very good job, given that he is also the class leader. What he does have to bear in mind, though, is there is a 3rd Teo Martin car, which is currently in, looking up and down the order.
9th position for Amarada.
In 9th position, but he's closer to the next lot of Pro-Am cars, so if he lets him through, he could have come under pressure for the class lead.
Yeah, the next group has been headed up by Fabrizio Crestani in the Mercedes. Then you've got Fran Raider, then the 2nd SPS car, Valentin Pierberg, which is in 2nd in Pro-Am. And then you've got behind him about 3 or 4 seconds, the 3rd place car in that group, which is Christoph Lenz. As again, Darren Turner peeks out into the mirrors of Martin Kodrich into the hairpin, trying to force him wide on the exit of the Kaisha hairpin as the Aston Martin is all over the rear wing of the McLaren, up through bank to Sabadell. And if you can stay close to this part of the track on the end of a lap, you might set him up for a super exit through New Holland corner onto the pit straight, and it could be his chance to get himself into 4th place if it starts to race that way. 12 minutes to go. Still Norbert Siedler leads the way from his teammate Giacomo Alto. Seems to be a bit of a formation finish forming up here for the Emil Frey cars, but also one car's trying to get himself up into the top 5. Look at this car. After it ran so strongly yesterday, the number 6 car, Riccardo Agostini. As we see, I think that looks to be Enrique Chavez watching on his teammate, looking rather nervous as Kodrich holds on to believe for the time being. Turner tries to close in the slipstream, and also watching on the pair of them is Agostini in 6th position. And again, slightly tighter run into turn 1. Turner, I think, was trying to get a little bit later on the brakes to try and scare Kodrich into a mistake, but Martin's wise to that, holds on to 4th place. So it's McLaren in 4th, Aston Martin 5th, Mercedes in 6th. It's a great battle for the podium's outside best, the rest in 4th position.
Yeah, and Jai Tong Liang has been reprimanded for his kerfuffle, you could say, with Najee Razak, who's currently last in the pro classification. The Richard Gonza car, which was previously driven by Bikes Kaviza, is currently up to 12th and is kind of level with the battle with the leading Pro-Am drivers. So if Marcelo Han drops back to concede position to the 3rd Teo Martin car, this could help change the pro classification further back as well.
Very much so. You get himself in more battles, which he probably didn't want to get involved in, but how he chooses to deal with that, we'll wait and see. He's just there in the background. He's not too far away, actually, from that scrap between Crestani and Raider. Now, he might try and put himself as a catalyst between himself and those 2 cars to try and help Raider get past Crestani without blocking deliberately as they come into the Kaisha hairpin. And again, Darren Turner just literally nibbling away at the rear bumper and the rear wing of that McLaren as they come back through back to Sabadell, keeps on the pressure as Agostini watches on as the pair keep on scrapping amongst each other. And looking at the actual gap now at the moment, Kodrich, look at their lap times compared to Salas. He's lapping about 6/10 slower at the moment than Salas. But interestingly enough, though, the 2 Emil Frey cars have, I think, purposely backed off to allow themselves through. We've got a car for turn 7. Whoa, that's Thomas Tuchel in the Vincenzo Sospiri Lamborghini. And that's not where you want it, Thomas. And he found himself in the gravel at the start of turn 4 after he got dumped out of the order by the Fran Raider McLaren at the start of the race yesterday. Back in the gravel again is that car. Yellow flag at turn 7. So whether or not it is him able to get back out again or not, whether he's just trying to rejoin the circuit, still yellow flags. If he can't get it out, that's going to be a late safety car, and that could make things very interesting, particularly for the 2 Emil Frey cars to make it something of interest. 9.5 minutes to go. Into the pit lane comes the Olip Racing Audi. So
and Marcelo Han is, we have got a safety car. Marcelo Han was under pressure there from the Mercedes of Fabrizio Crestani, who was going for an overtake, but I imagine the safety car has prevented that from happening now.
This makes things very interesting. 9 minutes to go. Safety car has been deployed. So that sort of comfortable lead gap of about 9 or 10 seconds, which the 2 Emil Frey Lamborghinis had, has now been wiped out, evaporated. There goes Thomas Tuchel jogging to safety. It wasn't really a serious incident, just simply spun the car off into the gravel. Now, hopefully, the marshals and the recovery teams can get this car recovered very, very quickly, because if we can get a bit of a grandstand sort of 2-3 lap shootout to the end between this one, which should be quite fun to watch. But the two Lamborghinis must be thinking either this is a blessing for them, because even they'll be able to cement first and second, or if they do get racing back underway, you've got the likes of Salas, Kodrich, Turner, Agostini behind that will be very feisty to make up positions. And so maybe they've sort of backed off a little bit to save a bit of tyres, just in case something did happen. Because, of course, when you get to a situation like this, when you've got quite a comfortable lead, you do tend to kind of rather keep on pushing back off a little bit. Here's the replay of the Suspiria Lamborghini going off, and just simply looked as though, rather than getting pushed, he just jumped all by himself.
Yeah, and it's a costly error, because I believe he had just overtaken Jedlinski in the Prime classification, because he'd also made a mistake in that second sector. Looking at the Prime leaders now, we've now got Marcelo Hahn, who will have 2 cars between himself and Valentin Pierberg, who has 1 car, the pro car of Richard Gonda, between himself and Christoph Lenz.
But the problem is that for Crestani, he's not going to sit back and allow Pierberg through, because he's got Fran Moreda right behind him to try and get through in that side of things. So it's a bit of a tricky situation in terms of if Pierberg has got some pace on Crestani and Moreda, he's going to try and pick his way through without compromising his teammate, who's been his own battle at the same time.
We essentially have the Pro-Am car leading the Pro car of the same team, and then behind that is the Pro car leading the Pro-Am car of the same team.
So this is the end of race 1 yesterday all over again, isn't it? This is now between, again, McLaren versus Mercedes, but it's the Teo Martin cars once more, but it's now Teo Martin versus SPS rather than Teo Martin versus Antonelli. So changes it up a little bit. Now this is interesting. They're clearing it pretty quickly. Safety car will already be in at the end of this lap. So they're going to close everyone together, and it will be pretty much a 2-3 lap sprint to the end. This should be interesting.
Yeah, and we did see at the start of this race, although it was Tom Alonso Cole in the car of the number 20 Mercedes, he made a very poor start on the rolling start. So Valentin Pierberg could repeat the same mistake if it was a mechanical thing, or if it was just a driver thing, he may be able to overtake Fran Moreda and cause a bit of trouble straight away.
And you've got to watch again the cars behind the 2 M1 Frey cars. If they can get a good restart, they might not have to worry about Salas, Kodrich, Turner behind. If those 3 cars go with them, could be a very interesting 5-car fight for the lead and the podium places with about, roughly 5 minutes to go. That's roughly around about pace-wise. 2, 3, if they push it, that's stretch 4 laps maybe, depending on how quick they can get around.
And do we have any of our lapped cars in amongst this order?
I don't think so. I can't see anyone that's in the mix. Just seeing there, that's one of the Raton Racing cars ahead of Ezekiel Perez Companc. So that's the position. That was Jaiton Liang just ahead of Perez Companc. I think everyone appears to be in race order. And safety car lights will go out in a second, I'm sure. Yeah, there they go. So, once again, to remind you, in this situation, the safety car will race off as quick as it can to create a gap. Now, effectively, what happens is Norbert Siedler effectively now becomes the safety car. He has to decide how much he wants to bunch the pack up here before he restarts, and crucially, when he wants to restart. And the crucial thing is, when he puts his foot down to restart, he can't keep on backing off and accelerating. Once he goes, he has to go. If he keeps on messing around with the field behind, he will get a penalty for it, and it could even cause an incident. So the rule is, when you go, you go. That's it. You've made your choice. Whether it's a bad or a good restart, that's it. Now he's going for it now. Into the chicane. Put his foot down on the exit. There he goes. And incredibly, look at that. The third place Mercedes was going with him initially. He runs wide on the exit of New Holland corner. 5.25 minutes to go. Here we go. This is now the last race and the final sprint towards the end of this second race here in Barcelona. Green flag in the air.
And the Marcelo Hahn McLaren looks like it's already going to be overtaken by the SPS Performance Mercedes behind it. It's lining up a move down the pit straight, heading to turn 1.
He's looking up the inside. What's interesting, though, is the 2 M1 Frey cars haven't pulled away from the rest of the field. Up the inside goes Richard Gonda on the inside of Valentin Pierberg into turn 1. Gets the move done. He's into the top 10 now. And behind them, more skirmishing going on behind them. That was, I think, Russell Ward battling with Fabian Schiller. And also, actually, Razak, there's contact. That's a race Lamborghinis. That was going around Jaiton Liang. Goes up on the inside line. He'll get going again unless he stalled the car. And that was actually the 90 car. That was Christoph Lenz, not Jaiton Liang, forgive me. So that car's off. Meanwhile, look at this at the front. The 2 M1 Frey cars, crucially, have not escaped the chasing back behind them because both Guillaume Salas and Martin Kodrich are going with them. And if they're not careful, they may bring Darren Turner and Riccardo Agostini with them. So now already, it's a 6-car group for the podium places. We're on board with Ezekiel Perez Companc. Looking to the outside of Jaiton Liang into Saat corner. Looking for the undercut. That's also in front of Federico Leo in front. That's a battle between Naji Razak, 14th, 15th and 16th place for those 3 Lamborghinis. Up through the left-hander at Campsa corner, under green flag conditions. frantic restart.
Yeah, I think we should watch the Richard Gonda car, the sole BMW in this field, just set the fastest speed trap figure and is looking to overtake Fran Rueda, who's the, hang on, Marcelo Hahn. Here's a replay of the clash at turn one.
Looked to me
in the middle.
It looked to me, yeah, he just got caught in between the Get Speed Mercedes of Fabian Schiller and Najee Razak. He sort of leaned against one, then pinballed off the other and spun around. So I think, to be fair, looking at it, wasn't really anyone at fault with that. It's a case of everyone just came together on the same point and he was the unfortunate party in that. So 3.5 minutes to go then. They're going to get roughly, I think about 3 more laps in this one end of this race, 3.5 to go. The two Lamborghinis have just about tried to pull away a little bit now. 0.6 seconds between the two of them. Salas still third, Kodrich fourth, Turner fifth, Agostini sixth, then Crestani in 7th place. He and Rueda have both got past Marcelo Hahn, and also trying to get past him now is Richard Gonda. He said to watch the BMW in 10th position, looking to try and get 9th from what is now the third of those McLarens. Incident involving cars 12 and 90, which is the little clash between Najee Razak and Fabian Schiller's under investigation. So we'll wait and see what happened. Of course, those two cars came together, but it was actually, of course, the number 90 car that came off worse as a result of that. So it was the number 90 car that's under investigation alongside the car which it collided with. Battle for fourth is still on between Martin Kodrich and Darren Turner, and Agostini still staying close. On over the curbs on the exit of Sayat corner, down the hill towards Verth chicane. Over left and over the right, hopping over the curbs, and the two Emil Frey cars look comfortable at the moment, at least, in this team formation. Salas is keeping the bonus. He's only a second behind Altoe at this stage, and if he can't keep up with the two cars, he might start to slip into the clutches of the battle for 4th, 5th, and 6th behind him. Also, watch out for Crestani and Fran Rueda behind. This could be a great freight train that's battling away over these positions. So we're going to get, I think, at the end of this lap, 2 more laps to go. Then, actually, maybe not. Might be this last lap this time by, because we're getting, yeah, I think it is going to be the last lap this time by. So 1:50 to go, preparing for the last lap of the race. And I wonder if this is possibly, thinking about it, because Norbert Siedler's currently 4th in the points. I reckon this might have been a tactic from Giacomo Altoe and the team to think, right, let's get him up higher up the order, finish ahead of both McLarens, let's get both cars into the top 2 going into Monza. So down the pit straight, last lap. And down towards turn 1 they go. Meanwhile, in the background, I see Richard Gonda has got past Marcelo Hahn, so he's up now to 9th position. But the two Lamborghinis hold on in team formation through the first 2 corners, and Altoe, whether or not he's going to try and make a move here, because he's looking incredibly close here. Through turn 3. Salas is holding on well in 3rd position. That's a great result for Sports and U Racing and the Mercedes on genuine pace, ahead of the Martin Kodrich McLaren and of Darren Turner in 5th position. So a great run from Guillaume Salas and Marcio Basso, as Giacomo Altoe tails his teammate into Sayat corner for the final time.
And it looks like the two Mercedes, Riccardo Agostini and Fabrizio Crestani, are potentially going to swap places at the very back of the picture there. We're going to hopefully see them through our commentary box window.
Yeah, they were pretty close on the exit through Repsol and Sayat corner, so good spot on that one. I think good stuff on the battle that's going on between 6th and 7th place, but through Kampsa corner for the final time. These two Emil Frey Lamborghinis, when they're on pace, are so dominant, and they're such well-sorted cars. Emil Frey's outfit is well experienced, having run the old-school Jaguars in GT3. They've run the Lexus cars. Now they've plumped for a pair of Lamborghinis. Ever since they did, these cars have run absolutely brilliantly. They had a bit of a glitch yesterday, but they're back on form in the dry conditions. And after a brief scrap, looks to Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa trying to help their teammates get up there at the top of the driver's standings, so they come into the chicane for the final time. And once again, that everyone's throwing everything they can at them, but you can't stop Emil Frey Racing on form. Out of the chicane for the final time, into the last corner. It's going to be a victory for Norbert Siedler and Michael Grenier in the second race of the penultimate round of the 2019 International GT Open. And once again, it's an Emil Frey Racing 1-2 with the championship leaders Giacomo Altoe and Albert Costa taking 2nd place, and a 3rd place. A great performance for Sports and U Racing. Guillaume Salas and Marcio Basso pick up 3rd position. Martin Kodrich and Enrique Chavez are the top. Teo Martin McLaren home in 4th. Darren Turner gets 5th as he and Ollie Wilkerson take the Optima Motorsport Aston Martin car into the top 5. Riccardo Agostini 6th in the Mercedes. Fabrizio Crestani 7th. Fran Rueda 8th. Richard Gonda 9th. This is a bit of a last lap skirmish between Najee Razak and Russell Ward, and Razak managed to squeeze through. No contact. Nice clean move from the Ombre Racing Mercedes. Oh, over the curb went Russell Ward. Almost made contact with Najee Razak, but I'm glad he didn't. And also confirmation, 10th place gives the Pro-Am victory to Marcelo Hans. That's victory for Teo Martin in that race. And the Pro victory, once again, for the second time this weekend, goes to Giuseppe Cipriani. Great racing all around. A late safety car with a bit of late drama, but great to see a victory for these guys. So there's confirmation of the provisional results. Seidler and Grenier win the second race in Barcelona. Costa and Altoe second to make it a double podium and a 1-2 for Emil Frey Racing once again. Guillaume Salas third for Sports New Racing, fourth for Kodrich and Chavez. Melitz Wilkinson and Turner in fifth. Agostini and Spinelli sixth. Ramos Crestani seventh. And it's Radio and Saravia. Visser and Gonda and Hahn and Coder take the Pro-Am victory, rounding out the top 10. Fastest lap of the race went to Ramanenko and Schiller with a 1:46.226. They finished 11th and Leon Razak 12th. The rest of the order down towards the top 20. And in 17th place, you can see Giuseppe Cipriani, because picking up the AM victory for the second time this weekend for Antonelli Motorsport. There's the rest of the order. And sadly, the cars that we lost in the race, we lost the Marcin Jedlinski, by the looks of things, Audi later on in the race. We also lost the Thomas Tuchler Lamborghini, having gone off into the gravel, and also Stanislav Jedlinski also off. So what does it do to the points heading to the final rounds? Well, Costa and Altoe now have an 11-point advantage over Chavez and Kodrich, but now into third place, splitting the McLarens, is Grenier and Seidler. They have a 4-point advantage over the duo of Fran Lureda and Andres Saravia heading to Monza. Well, International GT Open certainly doesn't disappoint, and once again, I think it was another entertaining race. Plenty of activity going on. It was more a battle of strategy and ultimate pace rather than lots of overtaking. But in the end, as we said when they were coming to the flag, when they're on form, you can't stop Emil Frey Racing. These cars are well sorted, 4 very capable drivers, and on their day, they are just simply dominant.
Yeah, I think each car and each team demonstrated its true pace today, because we didn't really get to see that yesterday because of the changing weather conditions. And thankfully, they were all quite close. Obviously, Emil Frey were slightly ahead of the rest, but we got a lot of close action all the way through the field. One
thing we need to point out as well is Guillaume Sanz actually did that race solo, so I think he was expected to possibly race with Marcia Basso, his regular partner in the GT Cup Open Championship, but did that solo, so a great drive to third place by himself. But the two Emil Frey cars once again celebrated, and there is the embrace of the teammates. Seidler and Grenier, victors in Barcelona in race 2. I think there's also going to be a lot of gratitude for their teammates as they head over to Emil Frey and the squad. And it's handshakes and thumbs up all round from the Swiss team. And I think once Giacomo Altoe jumps out, I think it's going to be very happy stuff. There's Albert Costa having a chat with Giacomo Altoe, who is discussing something. He seems a bit concerned about something for some reason, whether he just lost the victory or not, I'm not sure, but I think he realises the camera's on him, so he's... I don't know if it's about you, Ed, but looking at it, he's not happy about something being second place. I think he was expecting a win on home soil, but something seems to have possibly occurred which hasn't pleased him so much.
Well, they obviously lost their stick-on number on the left-hand door, sadly, halfway through the race, which put up more opposition than the rest of the field prior to the safety car.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting point, interesting point. Anyway, out steps Giacomo Altoe, and I have to admit, yes, it's second place. Dare I make the suggestion, was that potentially maybe some team orders, maybe, because Altoe and Costa don't look all that happy with second place, and it looked as though that effectively Altoe did sort of let him through fairly easily. So maybe was it a team order? We'll speculate in a second. Third place with a great solo effort for Sports New Racing, the Mercedes and Guillaume Salas, the Brazilian driver. Great stuff from them to get a great job on performance on pace. Second place, was it team orders or not? We'll find out shortly, but Costa and Altoe, the championship leader, takes second place at Emil Frey Racing. But taking the victory, their teammates, Mikko Grenier and Norbert Seidler, and Alfredo's down the pit lane with our race winners, with Norbert Seidler and Mikko Grenier. Down to the pit lane.
Michael Grenier, Norbert Seidler, winners at Barcelona race 2. In a warm day today, and I think it's fourth victory for you. Michael, first stint, how was it?
Yeah, first stint was okay. We were stuck behind the number 17. They have a lot of straight line speed, so it was impossible to pass. On the other hand, we knew we had a better handicap than the other, so we just stayed there. And then Norbert could finish the job. So yeah, we are happy to be back on the first step, as we had a bit of a run of bad luck lately, but yeah, feels good to be back.
It was very close also in the second stint with the teammates behind. All okay, all right?
Yeah, well, I had to push quite a lot. Giacomo was pushing quite hard. So I pushed maybe at the beginning a little bit too much, and then I had some tire drop, like I would say 5 laps before the safety car, and then the safety car helped again, and I could gain a little bit of lap time the last 2-3 laps. Yeah, but thank you to the team. They did a great job this weekend again, and let's hope to have a good one in Monza as well.
We certainly will have a good finale in Monza. Well done, guys. All the best.
Highlights of race 2 here in Barcelona for International GT Open. A strong start for the front row of the grid from pole sitter Albert Costa, but a slow start for Tom Winslow-Cole as the pack charged down towards turn 1 for the first time in bright sunny conditions. A lot of skirmishing, but 2 of the Mercedes ran wide as several cars took to the runoff area, but an early lead for Giacomo Altori and Albert Costa. Saw some more skirmishing further back with Enrique Chavez, Tom Winslow-Cole, and also Franck Pereira getting amongst it in the opening stages. So overtaking with Janine Hill and Giuseppe Cipriani as they swap places at the chicane earlier in the pack. Also moves between Franck Pereira and Frederick Schandorf, and the Audi R8 of the Olympic Racing Squad also getting through. A little bit of a touch there between Marcio Basso and Guillaume Salas and Marcelo Han. Then a move up the inside switch between the 2 teammates, Maurizio Crestani and Valentin Pierberg, and also getting through as well was the McLaren of Fran Moreda. A spin at turn 3 for Ezequiel Perez Compact, losing the Lazarus Racing Lamborghini up at turn 3 later in the race. A late safety car meant there was changes in the field, as up the inside went Riccardo Agostini past Marcelo Han. And then a late spin and a safety car caused by this incident with Thomas Tuchler at the wheel off the road. And this meant there was further incident on the restart as round went the number 90 car with Christoph Lenz at the wheel as he starts to run away. But after position swap early in the first stint, it was a double victory and a 1-2 for the Emil Frey squad, with Mikael Grenier and Norbert Seeler winning ahead of their teammates and championship leaders, which means it puts them into 3rd place with an 11-point lead for Otoe and Costa as they head to the championship finale in Monza. So up onto the podium first of all comes our solo 3rd place man, Guillaume Salas, on his own, but a great solo drive nonetheless. Well done to him for Sports and New Racing. Up onto the podium, 2nd place. Looked a bit disconsolate, but they're still waving nonetheless. 2nd place for Albert Costa and Giacomo Altori, a 2nd place at his home race. Standing on the top step for some reason, but that's interesting. They're on the wrong step, so is that a point to the team? I'm not sure, but still 2nd place for them anyway. And the winners, their teammates, Norbert Seeler and Mikael Grenier, 4th win of the season, a double Emil Frey podium. And now coming up the national anthem of the winning team, Emil Frey Racing, the national anthem of Switzerland. National anthem of the winning team, Emil Frey Racing, rings out around the circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, and the trophy presentation is about to get underway. First of all, the first trophy presented to our 3rd place finisher, a great solo effort presented by Greg Kuhl of Michelin Racing Manager, and Guillaume Salas picks up his 3rd place trophy. He's happy with that. 2nd place goes to our championship leaders, Albert Costa and Giacomo Altori, also presented by Greg Kuhl, the Michelin Racing Manager. Still smiles, even though it's 2nd place. And the Manuel Avino, Presidente of the RFEDA. And to the winners, Mikael Grenier and Norbert Seeler. A double podium and a 1-2 for Emil Frey Racing. And of course, they will also receive the team's winning trophy as well. Representative of Emil Frey Racing holds the trophy aloft, and it's more silverware to take home to their base in Switzerland. Great stuff. So, some fantastic racing here at Barcelona. What's going to happen in Monza in 3 weeks' time? Join us then as the Champagne Sprays. So myself, Scott Woodward, all of us here at Barcelona. Thanks for watching.
Oh,
So just for the benefit of the live stream, if you're still watching, we're going to be going through the rest of the podiums coming up. We've got the Pro-Am and Am podiums to run through. So we're going to get the drivers on there at the moment. Just a few of the drivers in the back room there just relaxing in the cool-down room after the race. And it should be our Pro-Am podium coming up next in reverse order. As just seeing Albert Costa waving to his home fans here in Spain on the podium. As now we wait for our Pro-Am drivers to head out on the podium. So here's the top three from Pro-Am. In third place, going to the HTP Motorsport and Winwood Racing pair of Indy Donche and Russell Ward. They pick up third place in the Pro-Am category. In second place, it goes to the Get Speed Performance Racing car of Fabian Schiller and Denis Remenyenko. Good effort on their debut in the championship this weekend to pick up second place. And the win, 10th place overall, goes to these guys. It's something for Teo Martin Motorsport, the local team. Victory for Marcelo Han and Adam Coder. So there they are on the podium. Third place on the right being, of course, Russell Ward and Indy Donche. Second place for Fabian Schiller, Denis Remenyenko. And up to the top step come our Pro-Am race winners, Marcelo Han and Adam Coder. And once again, trophies handed out, so some silverware to take back to HTP Motorsport HQ for Ward Donche. Second place trophies, of course, going to the Get Speed team. That was a worthwhile visit to Barcelona, wasn't it? Second place in Pro-Am for that squad. Very strong, and of course, they take the fastest lap of the race as well, so that'll be pleasing for them to know their car has some really good pace underneath them if they decide to head off to Monza. And after their strong efforts in qualifying, it certainly pays off well with the Pro-Am winners' trophies. They're delighted with that. That's more silverware to go back, this time to the Teo Martin base elsewhere in Spain. And unsurprisingly, it's at their feet, but not for much longer. It's not. It's time to cool off. The champagne goes flying. Alan Coder had to whack the bottle on the podium to get it open, but finally did manage to send champagne flying as they all get a much-needed cool-off and a much-needed drink after what was a very tough 60 minutes worth of racing. And after that, we just have one more podium left to go. That's for our Am category. And so they'll head up onto the rostrum very shortly. And it's good to see that a couple of our cars coming in for this round sort of for the first time are also making an appearance, which is good to see on the rostrum. Also, one note, team manager of car 33, which is Russell Ward and Donche, just after they've been on the podium. That's been reported told to report to race control immediately. So what that's for, I'm not sure, but that's our third place Pro-Am drivers that are being told to, that's it, their team manager being asked to go and see the clerk of the course. So the Am podium getting underway very shortly. Just keeping an eye across the way as our commentary box looks into the infield paddock, and it looks basically down across on the podium. And so onto the podium in third place goes our Boots and Guignon pair of Claude-Yves Gosselin. Claude-Yves Gosselin and Pierre Fellioni. Second place to Janine Hill and John Schuffner. So that's another worthwhile podium for Get Speed Performance. Second place in the Am category, and another great solo effort, his second win of the weekend for Antonelli Motorsports' Giuseppe Cipriani as he jumps to the top step. And once again, representatives from Michelin handing out the trophies. A worthwhile first visit for Boots and Guignon. Oh. Janine Hill and John Schuffner, a bit premature with the champagne, but wanted to cool off anyway. We're not even waiting for the trophies to be handed out. They're going for the champagne shower right now. And I think they're being told off, in terms of, no, get your trophies first, then you can start to spray the champagne. A little bit over-eager, but Janine Hill and John Schuffner, they'll be pleased with that. Another worthwhile visit for another cameo appearance. And they're all disappearing off the podium, and Giuseppe Cipriani's not even had his trophy yet. He's still at the top step of the podium, waiting for his piece of silverware. There it is. Up onto the top step, grabbing his trophy. Cipriani gets another piece of silverware to take home. And so with that effectively closes off the action from International GT Open. what was a pretty, I'm getting laugh on me here from the directors here about all that sequence. But anyway, from all of us here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia, thanks so much for being here. Join us for the season finale at Monza in 3 weeks' time. It's going to be epic. For myself, Scott Woodwis, Elliot Wood, and all of us here in Barcelona, thanks for watching. Don't miss the season finale. Bye for now.